It's exactly 3:02 now, and we're going to start. So, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are in the world today. And welcome to the Belbin Nigeria Fireside Chat. On behalf of Belbin Nigeria, I welcome you all, and I'm delighted that you're here with us today at this conversation, Beyond Strategy, Institutionalizing Excellence, how leadership behavior drives performance in large, complex organizations. Today, we have someone with us who has done this practically and is doing it practically. And of course, he's also got the qualifications to do it. We know that in many organizations, there's no shortage of visions and strategies, but then the real challenge is creating the culture and the leadership behaviors that enable this to happen. So our guest, Mr. Deepak Deshpande, brings us a wealth of experience in that regard. He is the vice president and head customer experience at Tata Sons. In brackets, is Tata Business Excellence Group. And so, I mean, they've institutionalized it for them to have it as a group itself. So it just tells you where excellence sits in that organization. He has spent more than 3 decades working with boards and leadership teams across a highly diverse and complex business environment, spanning multiple industries, cultures, geographies, and organizational contexts. Through this work, he has supported organizations on transformation, on leadership effectiveness, culture, customer experience, and business excellence at scale. He has a number of qualifications, degrees that span engineering, human resources, management, and then, of course, he's got certifications as well in these areas. He's an independent director, he's an executive coach, a team coach, a TEDx speaker. He's also been accredited, and that's the one that is closest to our hearts here. He's very widely respected for the insights and leadership that he brings into organizational performance. And on a very personal note, I was fortunate to be at the audience in 2024 at the Belbin International Team Conference, where he was one of the keynote speakers and one of the 2 keynote speakers, basically. And he was one of those people who, after he spoke, what he said stayed with you long after the conference. It was thoughtful, it was practical, and deeply relevant to the realities of leadership today. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is a pleasure to welcome Mr. Deepak A. Deshpande to Belbin, Nigeria, for what I know to be a very rich and insightful conversation. And please join me to warmly welcome him. Thank you. And just before we start, I will do a quick poll just to see, test or gauge our knowledge of Belbin. It's a Belbin webinar after all. So let's do that quickly. I'll launch this quickly. So if you can just do that for me. We've got 13 people, 14, yes. Keep going, keep going. We've got 23 people on the call. Of course, 2 of us, so it's 21. I'm expecting 21 responses if we can get them quickly. There's a lot to pack into this 45 minutes to 1 hour, so I'm going to be rushing through a bit. But we're going to get the substance of it at the end of it all. Okay. Interesting. Right. So I'll just end the poll now and share the results. I can see 44% of us on the call have heard about Belbin. 25 of the people here use Belbin, 75% don't. Probably at the end of this call, more people will be using Belbin, and that's what we're looking at and looking for. So yes, Deepak, I did talk about those other qualifications that he has, those other certifications. And one of them that really caught my attention when I was looking at his profile, which sort of dizzied me, was a new certification as a remote drone pilot. Please tell us a little bit about this and what it is.
Hi, Maureen. Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning to everyone. Thanks for joining in. It's good to have a nice, cozy set of people over here. And Maureen, thank you so much for hosting me, inviting me over here. And it was wonderful interacting with you in person in Cambridge in UK. And yeah, you did a quick poll on Belbin, and I think we were one of the few people who were able to meet Dr. Belbin. Unfortunately, he is no more there. But to meet up with him and get that inspiration of Belbin has been wonderful. And thanks for carrying the flag of Belbin in Nigeria and across the world. So I recently got myself certified as a drone pilot, and the perspective was more from a leadership. And so typically, the analogy what I thought was, as leaders, we need to have different perspectives. One is a perspective, which is called a 30,000 feet perspective, and on the ground, a worm's eye view. So to do that, it's very important for leaders to how do we get those different lenses from a worm's eye view and that at a 30,000 feet. And it's not about altitude, but for leaders, how do we navigate, how do you maintain discipline, how do you follow those protocols? And only once I went through that course, I realized the basics, which are of how do we well adapt and integrate with the ecosystem around. It might be the weather patterns, it might be the sunlight, different do's and don'ts. So I think that was something which was an eye opener for me. A good combination of science, a good combination of various arts, and that's something which I felt is really important, and I'm looking forward to kind of use those skills to of course capture some visuals, which as a scuba diver I do it under the water, so I thought it's also the right time to see the world differently from over a height. So that is where my drone certification, but mostly from the perspective of leadership. So yeah, for it.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to be having this conversation in segments. That way, yeah, so that way I can have, we can contextualize it and be able to summarize it easier. So under leadership and excellence, you've worked with leadership teams across more than 100 companies within the Tata Group ecosystem. From your experience, what truly distinguishes organizations that sustain excellence over time?
Wonderful point, Maureen. Before getting into what sustains organization, let me just share some facts. And the fact is, there are lots of organizations which start up, but there are very few which kind of continue. And if you look at Fortune 500 companies globally, research says that there are only 15 to 20% companies who sustain to continue their operations beyond 15 years, which means companies come, they do very well, they survive, they thrive, they are at their peak performance for around to 15 years, 20 years, and then they slowly decline and they vanish. So it's a very interesting study to know why is this phenomenon happening and what can be done. And this is not just high performance, but how do you sustain high performance? And this sustainability has to be looked at not just decades, but centuries. And there are also some good classic examples of organizations which have been doing really well in terms of being there for 100, 200 years and so on. And Tata Group is one such company which has been into existence for last 158 years. It has its own shares of being up and down, but I think the broad perspective of systems orientation really helps the organization to be high performance driven as well as sustain it over a period of time. So I think that's something which we at Tata Group have been doing with multi-stakeholder perspective, with various aspects which are there from an employee perspective, from a customer perspective, from the government, nations, community perspective. So those are the aspects which come in from a high performance culture, and that to make it sustainable over a period of time. Maureen.
Okay, nice. That's a very good answer to that question. And you're already showing the practicality of excellence and how it's being institutionalized in organizations. Our theme today is beyond strategy, institutionalizing excellence. That's a big word. It's a big word. Even when I was choosing the topic, I was thinking, well, this is quite a mouthful, but I had to try to practice it. What does that mean, really? How do you institutionalize excellence?
Yeah, I think spot on, and I think that's something which is very need of the hour. Because what we would not want to have is either individuals or organizations who are fly by night, which means you do very well sometimes, and then over a period of time, we don't exist. So maybe what we could do is everybody is fine is do a quick small activity over here. And so request is each one of us, we would be admiring some organizations who are really world class, right? So if you can open your chat box and just mention that one or two organizations, companies that you feel are really world class, that really stand out apart from any other organizations. And I'm sure we all admire. I'm a huge Apple fan, so I'd certainly say Apple. But I'm sure there are a whole lot of other companies. They are really world class, and we would do anything to either work for them. Wow, wonderful, Siju. So yeah, so we do anything for them. So I'd request, let's take around 30 seconds. So please think through, and it can be any organization that you feel really is high performing and world class. Wonderful. So we've got some responses coming in. So I'd encourage everybody, and there's nothing right or wrong. We are just looking at what makes those organizations great. Thanks, Siju. Meta, Apple, Google, Xerox, Meta. Yeah, others, if you can. Rio Tinto. Oh, thank you. Orco. Any other organizations? Aramco, Yukaig. Wonderful, wonderful. Great. Tata Steel. Okay. TCS. Yeah. Okay. G. Wonderful. Yeah. Xerox, Credit Corp. Wonderful, wonderful. Great. Um, Awesome. So let's get to the second part of it. I'm sure each one of us has those wonderful, lovely companies who are really doing well, and would like to be either buying their products as customers, or would be wanting to work with them, or be associated with them. Now, the point is, why did we name these companies of millions of companies who are already there existing in the world? So if you can just mention, let's say, why did we say something like a Nestle, or why do we say Apple? For example, I mentioned Apple, and I also gave a reason that Apple come out with very innovative products. Every time, every year, they come out with some fantastic products, and it is very difficult for anybody else to beat it. So that is the why of those organizations that you have just named. So if you can just kind of type in of what attribute or what aspect of that company really you feel makes them top of the mind recall, and we have put it over here. So again, please use the chat box. There's nothing right or wrong. There are various aspects, various dimensions which work. It could be around customer centricity. It could be a wonderful, Siju. Innovation, customer focus, great. So any other employee friendly, wonderful. So yeah, so the companies which have come in, what makes them world class? Others may also chip in, or if you're comfortable to unmute and speak, feel free to do that as well. Apple, okay, Moran, consistency in good quality customer service and awesome, yeah, absolutely. People centric, yeah, thanks, Leslie. Anything else which comes to your mind? Why did we use the company Enron? We all know about it. Any reasons? Or rather, let's see, why did we name all those companies which have come in? Last 5 seconds. They designed an ecosystem and stick to it. Wonderful. I think the word ecosystem or system is something which I really love. So great, people. Thank you so much for actively participating, changing the lives of people, innovation, purpose driven. Wonderful, wonderful. I think some great pointers have come in. So what I'd request is, Maureen, if you have that slide with you available, we'll just flash it and we can just talk
Yes,
about
sir.
it. So this slide is everything that we all just mentioned about, spoke about, and these are attributes of high performing organizations. Like I said, there is this organization called NISE, National Institute of Standards and Technology, and they do a research in terms of what are those attributes which are required for organizations to be really successful. And they do a very detailed research which goes on year after year to see what are those core aspects which are really important for the organizations to kind of be world class, to be high performing, and to be sustaining over there. So there are some 11 attributes which really stand out. And if any organization figures out a way to at least do three, four of them really well and manage others, is something which would make a huge difference to the organization. So Maureen, if you have it, otherwise I can just pull that
Oh,
particular.
I do have it. Let me get it on now.
Sure.
Um, sorry, just a second.
Or else I can also share it. Just let me know.
Oh, yes, I have to get it. All right. Mm, can you see
Okay.
it?
Yeah, perfect. Yes. Yeah, if you can put it in the slide mode,
Yeah.
presentation mode. It's gone, Maureen.
Has
Uh,
it gone?
yeah.
I'm not sure where it's gone.
Okay, as you bring it up, yeah,
I've
it's
seen
coming up.
it.
Oh,
So,
perfect. Yeah, yeah. So, like I was saying, these are those attributes of high performing companies. All the companies that we spoke about. The last one was which talked about ecosystem. It's basically the systems perspective. And if you move on the right hand side, every organization needs that visionary leadership. Again, if you go back to companies like Apple, we all know that how visionary leadership really makes that difference. We also spoke about products, but those products are meant to fulfill stated, unstated customer needs, and that's where aspect comes like customer focused excellence. And when we do this activity, typically companies like Disney come in because they are customers, consumers are kids, but the way they engage with them is a different level altogether. We spoke about people, and it's all about how we value people. It's about your people practices, HR, and so on. So that's where companies like Google, who really have very well articulated culture of taking care of their people. The next element, which didn't come in over here, but it's very important in this VUCA world, is agility and resilience. It's basically the ability of an organization to steer, navigate, bounce back in a scenario which is really, really dynamic. And hence, agility and resilience. And very interesting fact over here is before COVID, agility and resilience was not actually one of the core values. But I think this is something which all have learned, which could be supply chain disruptions and stuff like that. And even now, what's happening around the world would really require organizations to be really agile and resilient to cope up with all the challenges. The next element is the aspect of organizational learning. How do organizations quickly learn and move forward? So I think in a very institutionalized manner. So that becomes important. Innovation we spoke about. So how do you sustain innovation? How do you use innovation in terms of your products, services, offerings becomes important. There was one company which came in, which is GE, General Electric, which is basically management by fact. And this is one company which is known to drive or lead his company just by metrics, just by numbers. And that's where the entire focus on how do you use data, how are decisions backed up by data become important. We also spoke about Google, but Google in the backend has significant amount of data which is there. I did ask about societal contribution, and I think Siju mentioned that it's all about the societies in which we operate, how we contributed back to the societies, the communities. That also becomes really, really important, and that too in a world where it's not just profit that is one of the three P's. It's also the people, and more importantly, the planet and the overall the contribution to the planet, the ownership responsibility becomes important over here. One element which is really make or break is ethics and transparency. I took an example of Enron like that. There are many companies who do well, but one slippage and they cease to exist. And hence, ethics and transparency is something really important. But most important is one where every company has to deliver value and business results on a quarter to quarter basis, where investors, stakeholders expect certain returns, dividends, which becomes really important. So, with a vision, a long term strategy, one would also request or expect to have the companies delivering on results on a quarterly basis. So all of this put together is what contributes to high performing companies which really drive excellence. And at the center of the entire thing is the systems perspective. Yeah, Maureen, if you can stop presenting it, and maybe what we have been doing in Tata Group, or some of the frameworks models which encourage companies to look at those 11 core values, because it's easy to say customer centricity or valuing people, but how does those values get embedded in terms of processes, practices, is the key aspect. And to drive that, we require leadership systems, a systems perspective, who will also manage all the stakeholders. So I think at Tata Group we have adopted the Malcolm Baldrige framework, and like that there are various other frameworks which are available, which can be used to institutionalize all those 11 aspects. And like I said, to be a world class company, you don't have to be top on all 11 of them. And none of the companies is there. We never mentioned that Apple is good at people also, or Apple is good in certain aspects, but at least three to four core values they are really good at. So if you are able to manage those high performing attributes of core values of high performing companies, have a process in place, strategize it, then that's something which becomes manageable. And excellence is a journey. So that's something which I'd like to share more in at this point of time.
Thank you. I'm also admitting people. So thank you very much, Deepak. You delved into the second question I was going to ask, which is how you can actually practically do this in such a large, complex organization. And you did mention a framework. So if you don't mind, you give me that reference to share, or you can put in the chat box the reference, the framework you said you can use to manage these core values within the organization. We know that organizations have, like we said, they have strong strategies, like you've also alluded to, but then sometimes there's a struggle to execute. In your experience, do you think that leadership behavior influences operational performance?
Yes, Maureen, and that's where when we look at visionary leadership, I think it's all about leadership. And when I'm talking about leadership, it's not layered leadership. Leadership is across the organization, and the entire dimension of leadership is changing, which is very hierarchical, which is expected to be top down, but now the leadership is more networked. Leadership needs to be where you are closer to your customer, closer to your partner, closer to your employees, and that leadership really needs to fire all the cylinders. Having said that, there is a difference between individual leaders and leadership system. So what organizations need to do is create a framework, a system for people to groom and be great leaders. And the leadership system is something which really works. And we have come across organizations where individual mavericks or leaders have done very well, but the moment they move on, the organization really struggles. And that's a huge risk for organizations. And even now, many organizations look at succession planning, but they also look at a proper leadership system. So it is basically a PDCA, plan, do, check, and act, with stakeholders at the center, saying that what are the needs, requirements of various stakeholders: the investors' profitability, the employees' engagement, the customers' experience, and the benefits what they would be getting, the communities, the government, the all those things. So from that, how does the leadership understand what the expectations of various stakeholders is? Convert those expectations through their products, services, offerings, and communicate it back to the rest of the organization in such a way that everybody has a clarion call from an organization standpoint to just do and believe those things. And that's where the entire aspect of organization values, the culture really come up. And that's where the leaders play a very important role. And here I would say I've come across leaders. Typically, it's a good test to see if they end up doing work which is two levels lower, or they are doing work which is very futuristic. So it's basically running the business and changing the business. So as long as, and both are important, because you need to run your business in a profitable manner, but also create an organization for the future, for next 3 4 years. And that's where the entire aspect of leadership comes to light. And here is where I would say Belbin is very handy, because if we are going to be leaders, we need to have an internal compass, and that compass is for each one of us as leaders to know who I am, what am I good at, what are the areas where I can do good if I'm stretched a bit, and what are those areas where I need to really collaborate with others. So, from that perspective, that internal compass of Belbin is a true indicator to help organizations, help leaders to know themselves better. And it's not a psychometric test, but it is much more grounded, backed up with lots of research, which will tell you of the 9 roles. So Belbin very simply talks about 3 areas of expertise, and all three are important for leaders. So it is ideating, which is really important, because it's an organization, a business is all about idea. Converting that idea into an execution is what the action roles are. And to do that, you require people skills, so relationship skills. So this three broader categories get further classified into 9 team roles. So I'd say this internal compass really helps for leaders to be part of the leadership system and then drive excellence across the organization.
Okay, thank you very much. You actually went into the second question, my next question, because I was going to ask you behavior culture teams, and you're Belbin accredited. So I was going to ask how you think Belbin can help leaders, and how much you have used Belbin as a leader in, you lead the customer excellence group, customer
Sure.
experience group in Tata Business Excellence Group. So I was going to ask
Yeah.
you, how has Bell been helpful in all of the work you've done with transforming teams, with working with leaders and supporting companies with culture and all of that? So has Bell been instrumental? And how well adopted is it within your organization?
Well, great question, Warren. But before going to myself, I'll say that there's a version of Belbin which is applicable for the youth. And here, my daughter got her Belbin report. And you can imagine a 20-year-old young person who look at report and figure out and understand why am I behaving, doing certain things the way I'm doing. So it's so revealing, even at my daughter's thing, and that leads to lots of discussions, conversations, and taking that step forward wherever I have worked, be it individuals. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Maybe we can just discuss that particular aspect. So that's really helpful. Wherever I have worked in my own organizations or wherever teams come in, the usage of Belbin is really, really powerful. It starts with our own individual profile, which tells us which are the most preferred role that we would want to do. For example, we all write, right? I mean, we would either use our right hand, a functional hand, or a left hand. We are more comfortable with it. So Belbin basically tells you what are your most preferred roles and so on. As a leader, there are certain things that we'll be doing, certain things that we'll be reviewing, and certain areas where we'll be inspiring others. And that's where it's very important to know which are those aspects which really click. for us? Which are those areas where it comes very naturally for us and we don't struggle so much? Yeah, thanks for bringing this up. Yeah, it's gone. But anyway, Chus, we can speak about it. Uh,
I'm not sure
yeah,
why it
Mani.
keeps going.
No, no, it's okay. So I think that's really very helpful for at least me as an individual, and I think that came to me a little later in my life. But once I got accredited on Bilbin, it has really helped me, and the benefits have been multifold. One is it certainly helps us as an individual overcome our own blind spot, and the kind of work that I do, it's more of consulting, and even for me as a manager, as a leader for my own team, it gives me significant clarity of who I am, which are the areas of my strength, and how can I work upon. And then when you get really high performing team members together, it plays a very important role, because in a team there are five dysfunctions in a team, and there's a beautiful book by Lincoln, which talks about this five areas where the team and the leaders should be really aware of. It starts with trust. So it's very important that there is trust in the team. Second is the ability of the team members to confront. Because if a team doesn't confront with new ideas, new ways of doing things, everybody thinks alike, then the team is not really high performing team. And that confrontation will happen only when there is adequate amount of trust which is there in the team. So trust, being able to confront with each other. Then comes the aspect of commitment, being really committed to what has been agreed to, and that commitment or lack of commitment is at times a huge challenge for individuals and teams to perform. Then it leads to accountability. From that commitment, we all need to work on accountability, and finally it's all about the results which matter. So I think Belvin has really helped across these five areas, and in a very dynamic world where things are different. So this is something which I felt is really helpful for the leaders to have that internal compass, and also the compass for the rest of the team.
Very nice. It's interesting that you say this because, Belby, what you describe is moving the team into a place of psychological safety where they're able to express themselves, they're able to have healthy arguments, and then they're able to innovate because they don't fear, they're not worried about making mistakes. And what Belbin does is that it gives the language to teams, right? So the
Absolutely.
team roles you have earlier described, which I've tried to bring up on the screen, but keeps shutting down somehow. There are three categories. So you've got the thinking, the social, and of course the action. And each person is a combination of these team roles. And like you said, as long as you come and you present yourself with the strengths of the team roles that are your predominant team roles, then you're able to work in a balance to achieve the things that the team is set out to do. So Belbin actually helps to unlock the values of teams and help them perform better. And like you said, is very research based, and the research continues. Just recently, in fact, I'm going to talk about that question now to you. We've said it a few times: self-awareness, and just talk a little bit more around why it's really critical for leaders, particularly at senior executive level. Belvin came out with a research recently, it was just last month, I think, and it found out that it's only about 17.7% of people that have coherent profiles, and which means that it's only 17.7 people who are actually self-aware, fully self-aware. And so if you think about that in leadership and think about that in teams, you can just imagine more than 80% of the people really aren't that self-aware in how they behave in the workplace and what um, such non lack of awareness can create in terms of creating organizations. Or if people work from a place of strength, being self-aware, they can contribute and perform much higher. For Nigeria, we are even 1 point lower. I mean, well, for Africa, Nigeria sits in within the African group because it was a regional report. All the statistics were reflected based on region, and in Nigeria is 16.7% that are self, or in Africa that are self-aware. So just talk to us a little bit about that. You work with these senior executives, how important self-awareness is rather at that level.
Sure, sure. I think if you look at awareness, I'll add two more words to it, which are very fundamental. It starts with awareness, attention, and intention. If you're aware, our attention is always there in terms of what's happening within us, what's happening outside us, what are those aspects which are changing, and how do we need to moderate ourselves. So, with that awareness, there is significant amount of attention which can come in, and that is required if we need to fulfill an intention is a dream, an aspect which we need to overcome. So from that perspective, we might have significant amount of attention, we might have a great intention which is nothing but strategy or vision, but unless we have that awareness, everything else doesn't help. So from that perspective, I think Bilbin is a great tool. I would actually call it as a great leadership development tool because it brings in significant amount of awareness of what's happening amongst ourselves, and that awareness actually guides us to aspects which we are really mindful of, and which might at times derail, because so many things happen. And especially as leaders, when we work across generations, we are already coming with significant amount of conditioning, our biases, our beliefs, and when we get into situations, different stakeholders, we are directly in a command control tell mode rather than an ask mode, and that's something would not work as so from that transition from being a manager to not just a leader but a charismatic leader would require significant understanding of awareness, self awareness, and only when we are aware of our own emotions, our thought processes, our actions, behaviors, only then we'll be able to provide that safe space to everybody else in the organization. And that's something which is really the need of the hour, because nowadays we have seen there's so much of stress in the world. There's so much of AI related challenges which are coming in, and significant amount of disruptions which are there, things which people would have done it pretty well. Now AI can do it within fraction of that particular time, resource, and efforts. And hence from that perspective, I think it's really important to trigger that awareness. That awareness can be at a very IQ level. Again, when a Belbin perspective, you have that understanding of your intelligence, your ability to be, let's say, a completer finisher or a monitor evaluator. These are some of the languages which are there. So it really helps. It also helps you at an EQ level. EQ is an emotional quotient, and that's where are you really a team worker? Are we sympathizing or are we under empathizing? Are we listening to understand? Are we listening to just ask, shoot out the next question becomes important. So from an intellectual question to an emotional question, I would say the journey goes beyond that to a spiritual question. So in an era of AI, I feel it's very important to be really, really self-aware of what's happening. And there's a beautiful thing on Theory U, which talks about very generative leadership, which goes beyond the first, second, third level of doing things, but really deep-rooted. And I think Belvin is a wonderful tool to begin your journey. I think that's where the journey commences. And as we get deeper into it, we come across different people, and then we have that compass, we have that safe space to interact, engage, and distinguish between performance and a person, so that we can continue to have good relationships with individuals. At the same time, it doesn't hamper the organizational performance. We don't compromise on the meritocracy of doing things, but we add as a catalyst and have a multiplier effect by just being aware of what's happening over here. So I personally have found it really, really helpful. It has also helped me because as you go up the organization, it becomes quite lonely, and hence simple aspect like gratitude, a simple aspect of happiness, and this thing really, really work quite well over there. So hence I feel awareness, attention, and intention are really, really very important for each one of us as a leader, as a different role, as a parent, as a spouse, as a teacher, as a communicator. And Belbin is a good starting point to start getting some awareness around that.
That's very important and very true because I mean, when I did my accreditation so many years ago, my trainer actually told me she had well-being with her whole family, herself and her husband and her kids, and how it had helped them with their relationship. And I actually applied the same. I did get set for my kids when they were teenagers, just to get to understand them better, and it helps in the relationship I have with them. But
Maureen, I just wanted to share a story which actually helped transformed me, and this was when I was doing my scuba diving. This was one of my first scuba diving expeditions, and I was at around 8 to 10 meters under the water. And as you know, there is a whole lot of science, art, and practice to it. At around 8 to 10 meter, I realized that there was some air which water was seeping inside my mask, and it was getting into a little dangerous kind of a situation. And typically, when you scuba dive, you do it with a partner, and there was a trainer who was with us. So my partner was drifting away, and my trainer was there, but he was also a little far away. At that point of time, I was just calling my buddy, my friend, just a hi. But 8-10 meters underwater, it's very difficult to communicate, and he was like on his own. And that is where I realized the value of that one breath that we are taking in, and one breath we are leaving it out. So that moment was an wow moment for me, an awareness moment for me. And fortunately, the trainer came in and helped us execute the plans which was expected to be done over there. But that really sent me to reflect on simple things which we take for granted. For example, just that breath that we have, we are not even expressing gratitude, or just calling somebody hi, hello, or people wish us, we don't even, at least I didn't never wish them back. So those were some of the aspects which really transformed, and that was one aspect of awareness of how important it is to be aware of various things which are happening within us and help me. And that led to my journey of discovery within. And the more we discover ourselves within, that much more we, I mean, conquer is not the right word, but that much more we are able to win hearts of people outside. So I thought, let me just share that.
And that's an interesting experience. Another one of your skills, scuba diving. That's interesting. But it just shows how some things that may look simple or one simple single incident can transform your whole outlook to life and everything. Yes. So I think we're going to bring this now to cultural transformation. You're working across cultures in your big group. What practical approaches have you seen that have worked?
Yeah, there are this three aspects of culture. Culture, if it's not designed, the culture gets created on its own, and hence it's very important to design the culture that is really important for an organization to sustain. We all talk about VMV, vision, mission, values, but the really important aspect is culture, and that culture needs to be broken down into what are those behaviors that we need to do. So I can give you a couple of examples of culture. So we have one company where the values of the organization really are respected by everybody. So what they have done is, in this huge building, as you enter the building, there are the steps, and on the steps they have put down various the value words like integrity, respect, and so on. So the leader, the MD over here, every time he walks in India, like we do a namaste or namaskar just to express our thing. So every time he does that, and it is not symbolic that I'll demonstrate my integrity over here or I'll demonstrate respect for others. He's actually practicing that particular thing. And looking at him, the entire organization does it. So it's not just symbolic that you just do it over here, but you really live those values. And that's where the culture gets embedded. And it gets copied by everybody. So if there's a right behavior, it needs to be copied. If it's a wrong behavior, it needs to be confronted. More often than not, we let that wrong behavior just pass on. But that needs to be confronted by the leaders themselves, saying that no, this behavior is not acceptable. I'd want to change it. So I think this is one classic example of how culture gets created by design. And here, significant amount of time needs to be invested by leaders to create this culture which needs to be done. Another example over here is we have one of the divisions which is into jewelry. and there the salespeople have a very simple target. They don't have target of how many sales happen, but that's the target, or what they are asked to do is, whenever customers walk in, please greet them, and whenever the customers walk out, doesn't matter if they don't carry a bag. That means even if they don't purchase anything, it's fine, but they should leave with a smile on their face. It's such a powerful statement that people are not pushing you to buy something, but they are engaging with you to keep you happy. So that is one demonstration of how do you encourage the aspect of culture over there. Another aspect which typically happens is culture, and it also causes lots of harm and challenges, is around safety. And we have seen most often incidents, fatalities happen, not because we don't like it, but because the culture is not there. So there are organizations, I mean, we are not perfect, but still, if somebody is walking on a staircase with a phone on, that person is immediately stopped. It's that behavior is not encouraged. That behavior is stopped, confronted at that point of time, saying that if you're speaking on phone, please stop, don't move with the phone, stay of the staircase, or if you're walking up the staircase, please hold the handrails. So these are some examples of culture, and culture flows top down, and it has to be continuously reinforced. So that's my thing on culture. And that's very important, because like they say, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So we might have the best of the strategy, best of the intention, but if a culture is not there, then it really kind of doesn't work. So we do some deep dives. In our deep dives, the strategy is 30%. To make a great strategy is okay. I mean, you can get consultants who can come and give you the best strategy, but executing that strategy is where culture plays a really, really important role.
This is very important, and I think it's also very relevant to us and in organizations and companies here in Africa and in Nigeria. They're growing rapidly. And one of the reasons I thought this would be a very exciting conversation is because we've got some similarities. India is a huge population, young population, very diverse, and same as Nigeria, diverse, young population, and huge population, young ones as well, and also fast growing economy, as well as these different languages, different cultures within the same country. So those similarities are there. But how? And then the other thing is that a lot of African countries now, sorry, companies are becoming, or businesses are becoming conglomerates, like the Dangote Group. You have the BUA, you have MTN in South Africa. So there are just quite a few of them, and they're going into very complex sectors, different sectors, banking, agriculture, manufacturing. And what you then see, power and oil and gas. But what you then see is sometimes you walk into some business units owned by these people that you know, and you wonder whether they're living up to the standards of the owner because they're not representative. I mean, one of the things, what I put in the box there when you ask the question about Apple, about business excellence. And I thought, well, if I've been to different Apple shops in different parts of the world, and there's that consistency that you get. But even within the same city, here within a business, you would not get that consistency. So that's companies, I mean, need to be mindful that they're expanding and they're growing, but it's not just about having the logo and the colors consistently on the buildings, but the people. How are the people reflective of the leadership, of the ownership, and how does that drive and shape the entire organization to excellence? So
Yeah, Maureen. In fact, I was very pleased to see Dangote Group, the way they have really progressed. It's just phenomenal. And I could see lots of resemblance between the Dangote Group, which started as a trading organization, and very enterprising leader who is now moved into multiple industries, infrastructure, and really putting all those business models in place across the industry sectors and doing so well. I think it's really inspiring, and it's good to see that growth happening in a significant amount of time. And significant amount of capabilities and capacities have been added. So I primarily believe the enterprise leaders, industrialists, even in Africa, like the Dangote Group, are really good. I'm sure there are lots of learnings, best practices, which rest of the world can also learn from them. Because Africa is a high growth market, lots of potential, and aspects which can really kind of scale up. The rate at which the growth would happen would be significant. So I'm sure the organizations are doing quite well, but like you rightly said, it is all about consistency, standardization, innovation. So if you have to look at excellence, very easily stated, it is plan your work. So whatever, plan your work or plan your vision. Then it is work your plan. Once you plan your work, you need to work your plan, whatever it is there. Measure your work, whatever you'd want to achieve, whatever you'd want to do, which is like, let's say, your vision, your certain strategic imperatives. Measure those aspects which is there, then work your measure. Now we know that this is something which is working. We need to work on those measures. So to a certain level, it is great. But what makes a huge difference is uh, innovate to sustain. I think that's really important. How do you do things differently? So, along with an improvement framework, if we can have an innovation framework, it could be product innovation, business model innovation, process innovation. So, innovate to sustain. But the last one is sustain innovation. So, these are the six aspects which I feel are really, really important for any organizations. And here, I think it's all about how quickly are we able to adapt, and how do you scale with soul? Normally, organizations scale up, but typically, the if the soul is missing, then it's not sustainable. So I think broadly, if you can bring the soul part of it when you're scaling up, you're really taking it to the next level. That would be wonderful. And when I say soul, it is not just profitability from an investor's perspective. It is your employees, your suppliers, your partners, your communities. Those are the people who really build those things. For example, in Tata's, whenever we are setting up a new factory, even before building a new factory, we build relationships with people over there, the communities over there, and I think that's a huge thing. But very inspired, and I'm sure the future looks very promising for the Dangote Group and others who are really, really doing very well. So yeah, very impressed.
Thank you. Thanks for taking your time to also look at some of to look at Dangote Group. At least he's I think he's the biggest in Africa. He's our richest man, and then he's doing great. Builder, he has the biggest refinery in the world, I think, at the moment. Yes. So I'll bring you to the boards. And what are your thoughts on making AI adoption in organization an issue of significance for boards?
Well, I think boards are basically meant for governance, and the AI adoption, the rate, the pace at which it is happening, it's just a matter of fact that the boards quickly adopt AI, and there will be various aspects which would be there, right from code vibing and stuff like that. So from that perspective, somebody who can push that agenda would certainly be the board members, and that would help the management, the team, to be more appreciative, be more open to the possibilities of an AI. AI at this point of time is still in a build phase. Last 4 5 years, we have seen significant amount of scaling up which has happened, and the fact is, lots of rational left-brained work can be kind of be done away, and AI will play an important role. But I think at least for countries or nations, continents like Africa, Asia, where the population is really, really going to be important, it's very important that we quickly learn those aspects and how do we use it to kind of further the agenda of people before profits. And to do that, the boards will have to play a very important role. And second aspect is, nowadays there's significant amount of cyber attacks, threats which are happening and which can put the entire organization at risk. So from that perspective, the AI education or understanding really, really helps. and the aspects which they need to govern, they need to look at, would really help the companies that AI is there on the agenda. And each one of, I mean, of course, we do use it, but the applicability of that would certainly help and give that space for the management to adopt AI where it is required. We just don't follow it for the sake of it, because the application is really critical. And only if you are aware, if you are knowledgeable about it, we will be able to discern AI and put it in the right perspective.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm just coming to the last question. You've been on the hot seat for a while, but this has been quite interesting and insightful, very useful for me. I'm sure, I hope the audience to have found that really useful. So if there is one key message you'd like our audience to leave with today about leadership and organizational excellence, what would it be?
This is the message which I try to follow it myself, and it is applicable at an individual excellence, team excellence, organizational excellence, as well as civilization excellence. And that is basically that excellence is a journey. It's never a destination. It's always work in progress, and it's always important to experiment and experience. So that's the mantra which I try to follow. There are days where you don't do well, but it's always important to kind of look at it. And the analogy I take over here is the recent Roger Bannister movement, where our marathoners did 42 kilometers sub 2 hours. And that's a significant example of excellence, and something which we thought was impossible. We didn't just have one person, but the runners up also did it under 2 minutes. So I think excellence is a journey, and we need to kind of continuously work on it. Competition is healthy, and enjoy the journey. The destination will follow. So that's my mantra, be it individual excellence, be it team excellence, be it organizational excellence, or civilizational excellence.
Thank you very much, Deepak. This has been so rich and insightful. Thank you very much. I think, for me, you've just wrapped it up really nicely. Excellence is a journey. We've talked about leadership behavior. We've talked about culture, self-awareness, daily habits, simple daily habits that organizations choose to reinforce. We have had powerful reflections on trust, accountability, psychological safety, and the importance of leaders becoming more intentional in how they lead teams through complexity, through change, and keeping them focused on excellence and the cultural part of it. We need to institutionalize excellence. That is a fact. And you said that very nicely without missing words, and that's what's helping your group, and that's what has helped those organizations and those brands and companies that we see and we admire. And a lot of this has got to do with behavior, and it's got to do with the leadership. And so that's why well-being remains very ever so relevant, because we help teams, we help leaders build greater self-awareness, understand behavioral strengths, blind spots, as you had mentioned, and develop collaborative relationships, required for teams to be high performing. So for us in Africa, in Nigeria, we're facing a lot of rapid growth and transformation. The challenge is not only how to achieve success, but how do we sustain it beyond individual leaders? And you did mention that if a leader walks out of the door, what happens? Tata Group has been there since 1886, is it?
Sorry, come
The
again?
Tata Group has been there since 1886 or so.
Yeah, it's almost 160 years now that it's
Yes,
been in
yes.
existence.
So,
That's right.
so when the first leader walks out the door, what do we see? The multi-generational businesses and super conglomerates. There's a lot to learn from that. So, but then it starts with self-awareness, and that's what shapes teams, and that's what shapes culture, and ultimately determines organizational performance. So let's I don't know if you want to take any question from the audience, otherwise
Sure, we can. If there
yeah.
any questions, observations, comments, or your own experiences, anybody would want to, happy to do that.
Oh, all right. So we just take that. Any questions? Anyone from the audience has any questions or any burning comments to share or experiences? Okay, I think there were some things in the chat. I don't know if there's any. Okay,
Uh, the silence seems as if there are two options, two things. One is it would have been very clearly understood, explained that there are no questions, or it has been really very tangential that very difficult to ask a question. Uh,
well, I've
but
seen
feel
one that
free.
says, nice to know I think that's a comment to the scuba diving. And that's Ibiene saying, nice to know. She totally understands the feeling you went through being a scuba diver herself. And there is Dr. Atinuke who says culture is determined by the worst behavior the leader is willing to tolerate. And Gary,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, Gary had issues with his connection, so he left. And Atinuke has thanked us so much for the very useful session. So, well, I guess I'll say thank you then on these notes, and I thank you sincerely for being our guests today. And I thank everyone who joined us. Thank you for your time. Credit card would like to request my email address. Okay, I'll put it here now. So I'll put my email address here. At building.com.ng. Phone number. Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of thank yous, Deepak. Yes.
So thank you,
Thank you
Ewan.
for the
I thoroughly
excellent,
enjoyed it. Thank you for
totally
the
enjoyed.
opportunity. And I'm sure we'll have more opportunities to collaborate and lots of things where Nigeria is, Africa is, and I'm sure there'll be significant amount of cross-learning sharings which will happen. I'm also sharing my LinkedIn profile. Feel free to connect with me if anybody has any ideas, thoughts, or would want to jointly experiment, pilot out something. I'll be happy to do that. So once again, thank you, Maureen. Thank you all for your time, and it was lovely interacting with you, Maureen.
Thank you, Deepak. Thank you, everyone, and have a lovely evening.
Thank you
Thank you.
all.
Thank you,
Logging off
Siju.
now. Thank you.
Yes,
Thanks.
thank you.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye
you
bye.
very much. Yeah, thanks. Bye. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. Thank you, Maureen.
Thank you. Thank you, Siju.